Welcome back to another installment of CAD 2D drawing. Today we're going to be drawing our form roll lever. Might look pretty complicated in here. There's a lot of measurements all over the place, but if we break it down, it's really not going to be that complicated. So what we'll do is we'll start with the left half side and we'll draw most of this stuff over here, and then we'll move over to the right half and we'll draw this stuff over here. We'll start with just indicating the distances between this guy right here, the 4 1/4. So we'll start with a line, come over here, we'll find the edge of this thing. Grab a line, 4 1/4. There's our left and right sides. So now we are right here. Now we need to start building this little section. I'm going to draw a line that is 9/16 away to just get to this edge right here, and then we can start drawing some circles that meet up around that. So we'll draw a line that is 9/16. I like to hover over top, and I'm just going to move my mouse over and draw 9/16. I'm not actually drawing a line. I haven't clicked anything, but I draw that 9/16 line just to draw a little line up so I know how far away that is. Now I have some radii for some circles here. This circle right here is a 3/4 inch diameter circle. We know it's diameter because it's going 3/4 of an inch from here to here. So I'll draw a 3/4 inch diameter circle, and then I'll draw a 7/8 radius circle after that. So we'll draw a diameter circle, 3/4 of an inch. Then I'll draw a radius circle, 7/8 of an inch. Those are my two circles for out here. And now that I have the height of this one, I can take this, drop it down just a little bit, and I'll draw some lines from here over to here, and we'll get that little rounded edged piece drawn in this section. Let's trim this up a little bit. Trim that. Don't need this part of the circle. We'll leave this here for just now until we can draw some of the rest of it up here. So I have that part. Now I'm going to come over to the center of this section, which is 1 1/8 over, and I'll draw some rounded, some circles on this side to get the other end of it. So come over 1 1/8 from the center line here, 1 1/8. Again, I'll draw a line vertical just to give me a little point to lock onto. And from this one, it is a 1/2 inch radius on the inside of this guy right here. So we'll grab a radius circle, 1/2 inch. Looks like my line was almost exactly the right length. Come up even further though. Now, that gets me this part of the circle. I'm going to draw this larger outside part as well, and we know from this section that that's a 7/8 of an inch radius, and because we line right up at the top here, we know that this has to be 7/8 as well, because they don't tell us any otherwise, so it's going to be 7/8. So we will draw another 7/8 radius circle. Now that those two overlap, we can draw some lines across the top from quadrant to quadrant. And we'll do some trimming just to get it to be a little cleaner in here. So now we have all of that taken care of. Now we just need to connect these lines over to here and make this side squared off. So what I'm going to do is take this line and draw it a little bit longer for right now. We can trim it up later. And I'm going to draw my lines from the quadrant here over to there. trim up the extra length that I have there. Don't need that line anymore. Don't need that little line anymore. And now I'm going to, and I can trim this little section up as well. There and there. Now I need to make some small inside radii, 1/8 of an inch right in here. Now I'm going to leave this line here for right now because I want this to be trimming itself in here. So we're going to get the fillet tool, and I'm going to first give myself the radius of 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to select the first object, second object, right there. Do it again, first object, second object. Now this little bit of line I can delete, and we have our left side of the drawing. Now, just to be able to get this larger outside part here, we're going to start from the center of this guy, and we're going to come out 1 1/4 inch radius for this large outside circle, and then that's pretty much where we're going to leave it on this side for right now. So we will get a large radius circle. We're going to find the center. See how this curve right here, this is our old existing curve. That gives us the center point right here. So we're going to come out from there, 1 1/4, 1.25, and we're going to leave that there for right now and just not bother with it because we're going to need to connect other stuff to it in a little while. Now let's move over to this side. We have this 4 1/4 line. That gives us this center point right here. So we can start drawing some circles just to get us a little bit of a visual, and then we'll start drawing these what I call fingers on the outside edge here. So first small circle, smallest one on the inside, is a ream circle, 1.123 to 1.125. So we're going to just go with the larger drawing of 1.125. And again, a ream is a diameter. It's like a drill, but more accurate. So that's 1.125. 1.125. Now on top of that, this larger circle is this hub, 2-inch diameter. So there's no other line telling us how big this circle is, so it must be this one. So 2-inch diameter circle on the outside of that. Now we can start drawing. We could draw this line in here. This is a 1.5 inch radius to get to this very large circle right there. Go radius circle 1.5, 1.5 radius. Okay. Now let's start drawing these fingers. Now we'll start with the top one. And it says that from a center line, we need to go up 30 degrees. So the first thing that I'll do is just draw a line that goes up at 30 degrees. So I have my snaps turned on to lock on to 30 degrees. So I'll just draw a line and make sure it's plenty long enough. Once again, we can always trim it down later. Now the difficult part of this is that our finger up here is offset from this line 1/2 inch. So it's not exactly on the 30 degree line. It's actually 1.5 an inch away from that. So what I'm going to do is just take my line and offset it 1/2 inch so that I know how far up I need this thing to be. So I'm going to take this line, offset, specify offset distance 0.5, 1/2 inch, select the object to offset, and move it up to there. So now I have that line offset at that distance. And the other thing that we need to know is where does this lie, and that's 2 1/4 inches away from the center, and it's this line right here would extend down to this point and lock on to there. So we need a 2 1/4 inch line to go up into here. And I just drew my line further than I need it. So for right now, I can do this again where I follow along this line and go on a distance of 2 1/4. and then come perpendicular to that line so that I can get right to here. So I went up this way 2 1/4, and then I went up this way past my 1/2 inch line, so past this point and up into here. So this is the front face of that finger. Now I need to be another 3/16 away to get into this part so that I can be up into here. So I'm going to take a line again. I need to be here. I'm going to go up this way. I'm just going to make sure that my line is perpendicular at 120 degrees, and then go 3/16. And that gives me this point right here. So now I'm going to delete this line for a little bit. And I know that right here is the center of this guy right there. So if I start drawing the 3/8 inch radius, it'll start to sort of appear to look like that finger is coming up there. So 3/8 of an inch radius from this point. That gets me the circle. This part is the front face of it. So that part, that line right there is the front face. So now I can actually start doing a lot of my deleting and trimming because we now have the location of where we actually need. So we're going to trim. Don't need any of that stuff. Don't need this part of the circle. And I don't need that part of the line. So you can see that that part has been trimmed up and it's sitting in space where we actually need it to be. And now I can get this 1/2 inch radius into here, and there's also some very small radii, 1/16 of an inch, on the bottom edge of these fingers here, and it doesn't mention it, but again, if it's a mirrored image and they don't tell you anything about it, we're to assume that this is going to be the same up here. So a 1/16 of an inch radius needs to be in the inside corners here. So we'll grab a fillet radius 1/16. We'll do from here to there, and we'll do the same thing over here. And now I also need that 1/2 inch radius into here. So I'll grab that fillet tool again, change the radius to a 1/2 inch, and now go off of this to this, and that gives me a line in between there. We'll do some trimming later on to get rid of that stuff there. So now I have this guy, and I have all of this, and there's this big curve here just to get the very top end of this thing finished. We have a 3.5 inch radius from an unknown point down here, but it goes in between this circle and this circle, the 2 inch diameter hub. So we are going to make a tangent radius to get that large circle right there. So we'll come up here to our circle tool, tangent radius. We're going from outside corner there. Now don't go with the bigger one. We're going with the 2 inch diameter circle here, somewhere in around about that point. Move our mouse down to here, and it needs to be 3.5 inches. That's our large curve right there. Once again, we can trim this to make it a little tidier. Don't need all of that, and we don't need that or this guy. So that's that top finger placed. Actually get rid of these 2 lines there. That's all in place. Now we need to do the bottom one. The bottom one's a little simpler because this is just on a 45-degree angle line, and that line does go directly from the center. So this one, I'm going to do a different line to get right down to here. We know that that line needs to be 2 1/8 away from the center and right on the 45-degree line. So I'm going to draw a line. Now when I start drawing that line, I'm going to use the @ symbol. And it says I need that line to be 2 1/8 of an inch away, 2 1/8, and then I'll hit Tab, and then we need this angle to be locked onto what angle would be 45 degrees down, which is 315 degrees, 315. So what that has essentially done is given me the exact length of line and the angle that I need to get right down to this point right here. Now I'm going to come off of that line 3/16 of an inch with a perpendicular line to that, which would be 45 degrees this way, or 135 this way. Okay, so we have this line over here to go 3/4 of an inch. Now we need this circle, 3/8 of an inch radius. So we'll go back to our radius circle, 3/8 of an inch. So that gives us this part right here. Now we need to create that flat again. So we'll extend this line now to make sure that it cuts the entirety of the front of the circle off. And then we can start doing some trimming. We can trim this and trim this. We don't need that line anymore. Now we need to create some little fillets on the inside here. So we are going to fillet. Make sure our radius is 1/16 of an inch. Fillet in between here and here, here and here, and then a final one that's going to be that 1/2 inch radius again in between the flat and the larger circle here. So we'll get fillet, change our radius, go in between here and there. Now it did take this little line off, so we need to extend this line back again and trim. It should have this little tiny sliver in here. This is correct. Up here, we need to do the same thing. We need to extend this line and trim so that they are solid in here. Now, we need to get this larger outside radius again, 3.5. So we're going to tangent radius. We're going to get that tool up here. Tangent from here, tangent from the 2-inch hub again. Move my mouse up here, 3.5. Now I have that curve. Trim again. And we're almost done. So I have all of this done now. I have this done. I want to make this curve in here so that I can finish up the whole outside. And we're going to make these lines over here as well at the same time. So I have a 3-inch radius to go in between these two big curves. And we're going to assume that the top one is the same. So I'll grab my tangent radius tool again. Now this is off of this curve right here. So I'm going to tangent off of this part of the curve to go over to this part of the curve over here. So it's this larger circle, and off of this part of the circle over here, move my mouse down here and make a 3-inch radius circle, and we'll do the same thing up top here. From this corner to the curved part of here, move my mouse up 3-inch right to there. So I can trim these out. We can start getting rid of some of this part of the curve because we don't need this guy anymore. And now we're going to draw some tangent lines from this curve to this curve on the top and bottom. So when we draw a tangent line, we use our snaps turn off all the lines above tangent and just leave that one attached. So we're going to tangent from here to there. We'll do the same thing again, tangent from there to there. Once again, do some trimming. And we have our oval with flat sides here and our lines coming down. We have this all taken care of. I don't need the rest of this curve over here as well, so I can take this part out. So we'll trim this up. And now the last thing that we need to do is just make this keyway down here. We've made a couple of keyways already. So we're going to turn our snaps back on. Draw a line straight down, further than we need it to go. This keyway is 1/4 inch by 1/8 of an inch, so it's 1/4 of an inch this way, 1/8 of an inch this way. So half of the 1/4 is 1/8 of an inch anyway. 1/8 by 1/8. Take these two, mirror them. Don't erase. Now I'll take these 4 pieces and I will move them straight up until they lock onto that side. Get rid of that line. Don't need this line anymore. Trim that little section. And we should be done. Everything over here, all of these curves, this large curve here, large outside ones, this whole section over here. I think we got it all.